Hey everyone, ready to really get into it with Seeking Alpha. It can be pretty overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even begin with all this
Hmm.
stuff on there? But that's why we're here today, to help you figure out if it's the right tool to, up your investing game.
Yeah, Seeking Alpha, it's been around a while, actually. Started back in 2004. The founder, David Jackson, his idea was to basically level the playing field, bring Wall Street style research to regular investors.
Oh, interesting. So it's been around longer than I thought. Okay, so let's jump right in. One of the first things that kind of jumps out at you on Seeking Alpha is, well, there's just a ton of analysis on stocks. But it's not like just dry numbers and charts, right? It feels more like you're walking into a room where everybody's debating.
Right, and that's actually a big part of what makes Seeking Alpha so useful. You're seeing different perspectives, not just one take, which could be, biased. You see the bulls, the bears, everyone in between.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so earnings reports, we've all seen them. They can be a real pain to go through. But Seeking Alpha does this cool thing where they take those like really dense reports and transcripts and turn them into something you can actually
So
digest.
kind of like they've given you the Cliff Notes version, but then they add expert commentary on top of that. It really helps you understand what it all means.
Exactly. And for anyone out there who's into dividend investing, they've got this thing called the dividend scorecard. It's basically a rating system to see how good a company is at like paying and maintaining those dividends, right?
Yeah, they take a bunch of factors into account, like a company's history of paying dividends, how healthy their finances are, even their future prospects. They've even got this special metric. It's called dividend safety, which basically tells you how risky it is that a company might cut their dividend. So you can use it to try to find those companies that, are paying dividends now and will hopefully keep paying them for years to come.
That's amazing. Now, this next one, this is what really intrigued me. They've got these quant ratings, which is like having a supercomputer, analyzing stocks for you. I'm curious, how does that even work?
So imagine they're taking a huge amount of data, looking at things like valuation, profitability, how fast the company is growing,
Yeah.
even things like changes in earnings estimates.
Yeah.
And they crunch all that data into a single letter grade.
Oh, wow. So you can get a quick idea of whether a stock is worth looking into.
Exactly. It goes from A plus for the stocks that look the most promising all the way down to F for those that, well, maybe you want to stay away from.
That's pretty cool. And it's not just stocks, right? They also help you figure out those ETFs and mutual funds, which can be kind of confusing sometimes. They don't just give you the basic description. They really dig into what they hold, the strategies, the risks, and rewards.
Yeah, and something that's really helpful, especially for long-term investors, is they analyze the fees associated with those funds. Those fees can add up over time, so it's really important to understand what you're paying for.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so they've got all that, but on top of that, they keep you updated on what's happening in the market, company news, economic updates. It's like a personalized news feed, but just for your investments. But I think one of the most interesting things about Seeking Alpha is the community aspect, right? It's not just information being thrown at you. You can actually discuss and debate and learn from other investors.
Totally. It's a really big part of what makes Seeking Alpha unique. You can tap into the knowledge of literally thousands of other investors, from people who are just starting out to, seasoned pros, read comments, ask questions, even share your own ideas. It's a constant flow of new perspectives.
That's really cool. Now, I know they have a ton of free content, but there are those paid tiers too, premium and pro. What's the difference? And is it worth it for like the average person?
So with premium, you get those really deep dives into companies, you get more advanced tools to play around with, even exclusive investment ideas, and they have these really specific filters so you can search for stocks that match your exact criteria. And then Pro is really geared more towards, professional investors, people who need that information even earlier and even more in-depth research.
So I guess it depends on how seriously you're taking your investing and how much you want to invest in, getting that research.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. Like with most things, the free stuff is a great starting point, but the paid levels just offer a whole other level of depth and detail if you really want to go deep.
Okay, to make all this a bit more real, let's talk about Mark, a real investor who used Seeking Alpha to build this amazing dividend portfolio. He had a really specific goal in mind, right?
Yeah, he was all about dividend growth stocks. He wanted to find those companies that could consistently increase their dividends over time, build that passive income stream.
Makes sense. But he didn't just chase the highest yields, right? He wanted to make sure those dividends were actually sustainable.
Right, exactly. And that's where Seeking Alpha came in.
Yeah.
He used the dividend scorecard we talked about to narrow it down to companies with those really good scores, meaning They had a solid history of paying dividends and their financials looked good. But he didn't stop there.
He wanted to be extra sure, huh? So he dug even deeper, right?
Yeah, he went into the quant ratings, specifically looking at that dividend safety score. He realized that the companies that scored above 80%, they were way more likely to keep those dividends coming and even grow them over time.
That's so smart. He basically combined these tools to find the best of the best in dividend growth stocks. And he didn't just blindly follow those recommendations, did he?
No, not at all. He used Seeking Alpha as a starting point, then went and did his own research to double-check everything and make sure it all lined up with his own goals and risk tolerance.
That's a really important point. Seeking Alpha is a great tool, but you still need to do your due diligence, right? Okay, now get this. Seeking Alpha can actually move markets. How is that even possible?
Well, when you have a bunch of people reading and sharing those really popular or well-researched articles, it can have a ripple effect. Think about it. They get shared on social media, picked up by news outlets, and even big institutional investors might start paying attention.
So it's not just individual investors making smarter decisions. It's like the entire Seeking Alpha community can influence what happens in the market.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And that's why it's so important to be, critical about the information you see on Seeking Alpha. Just because
Right.
it's popular or well-written doesn't automatically make it true or unbiased.
You always have to be a little skeptical. Do your own digging. Right.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the good stuff, the features, the success stories, but it's important to be realistic. No platform is perfect. So let's talk about some of the criticisms and challenges that Seeking Alpha faces. One of the biggest ones you hear is about the quality of the articles, right?
Yeah. Because anyone can contribute. The quality can be a bit all over the place. You might read an amazing article one day, and then the next day it's something that's, not as well researched. So you've got to be careful and not just believe everything you read.
So we need to be savvy readers and not just take everything at face value. What are some other things to watch out for?
Oh, absolutely. And another thing to keep in mind is like potential bias. Some people writing on there might own the stock they're talking about or like have some other financial interest in it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you got to be a bit cautious and, take what you read with a grain of salt. Doesn't Seeking Alpha have some rules about that, though? Yeah, they have disclosure rules, so contributors are supposed to tell you if they have any, conflicts of interest. But you still want to be aware of that possibility, right?
Right.
Read carefully, think about why the person might be writing that, and, always do your own research to back it up.
Makes sense. Always good to be a little skeptical. Okay, another challenge, and this one comes up a lot, is the paywall. Some of the juiciest features, those really deep analyses and exclusive ideas, you got to pay for those. And that could be a deal breaker for some people.
Yeah, that's true. But to be fair, there's actually a lot of good stuff you can get for free on Seeking Alpha. I mean, thousands of articles, news updates. You can even track your portfolio with basic tools,
Yo.
all without paying anything.
So you can really get a feel for it before committing to a subscription.
Speaking of getting a feel for it, let's go back to Mark and his dividend portfolio for a sec. Last we heard, he was using that combo of the dividend, scorecard, and quant ratings to find those companies that were likely to, keep those dividends coming. How did he actually use the platform to build his portfolio, though? Practically speaking.
So he had a list of potential winners from those tools, but he didn't just buy them all right away. He wanted to dig in and make sure they were a good fit. So he started reading all the articles and analyses he could find on each company just to get a sense of what different people were saying.
Smart. So you're not relying on one person's opinion. You're getting the whole picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also spent a lot of time reading the comments on the articles. He said he found some really good insights there, things that the main article didn't even mention.
Oh, that's so cool. It's like having access to the brains of a zillion other investors. Yeah, exactly. Get all these different perspectives. And this is really interesting. He actually used Seeking Alpha to help him manage his risk, too.
Oh, tell me more about that.
He knew that. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? So he used those portfolio tracking tools to see how his investments were spread out, make sure he wasn't too heavily invested in one company or sector, and, just keep tabs on everything.
That's such a good point. Seeking Alpha isn't just about picking winners. It's about making sure your whole portfolio is solid and matches your risk tolerance and goals.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark's story just shows how you can really use Seeking Alpha to do that. He had a strategy. He used the tools to find good opportunities. Then he dug deeper, talked to the community. And in the end, he built a portfolio that worked for him.
It's inspiring, right? Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, there's something there for everyone. But with all that information, it can be tough to know where to begin. What advice would you give someone who's brand new to seeking alpha?
I'd say first, really think about your goals. Like, what are you trying to achieve with your investments? Do you want your money to grow over the long term? Are you more focused on income? Or maybe a little both? Once you're clear on that, then you can start looking at the different features and tools that can help you get there.
So it's like having a roadmap before you even start driving.
Yeah.
You got to know where you're going before you can figure out how to get there.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to play around with it, try different things, read articles from different authors, check out different sectors, play around with the portfolio tools. The more you explore, the more you'll understand what it can do and how you can use it to your advantage.
And don't forget about the community, right? Ask questions, share your own thoughts. You never know what you might learn from other people.
Oh, yeah. The community is like a gold mine of information.
Mm.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the good stuff, but got to be real. Seeking alpha has some downsides, too. We mentioned article quality and potential bias, but are there any other challenges or criticisms we should tell our listeners about?
Yeah. What else should people be aware of?
Well, one thing that comes up sometimes is that seeking alpha can be a bit of an echo chamber. Because it attracts a certain type of investor, the opinions and analysis can sometimes all lean in the same direction. It might not always be a perfectly balanced view.
Oh, so you might not get the full picture, huh? That's a good point. It's always smart to get your information from a few different sources.
Right. Don't base your decisions solely on what you see on Seeking Alpha. Do your own research, talk to a financial advisor, and really make sure you understand the risks before investing in anything.
So it's all about taking in information from different places and making your own informed decisions. Another thing that can be tough, especially for newer investors, is that seeking alpha can just feel overwhelming, right? There's so much information, it's hard to know where to even start.
Oh yeah, it can definitely be a bit much. My advice would be to start small. Pick one or two things you're interested in, like maybe dividend investing or a specific sector, and just focus on those for a while. As you get more comfortable, you can start branching out and exploring other areas.
Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Start with what you know and what interests you and go from there. And hey, there's no shame in asking for help either. The Seeking Alpha community can be really helpful, especially for beginners. There are tons of experienced investors on there who are willing to share what they know.
Oh, for sure. Most people are happy to help others learn. Okay, I think we've covered a lot in this section. We talked about the benefits of Seeking Alpha, some of its limitations, and some tips for using it effectively. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about you, the listener. How can you take what we've discussed today and actually apply it to your own investments?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? It's one thing to talk about Seeking Alpha in general, but how can it actually help you reach your own personal financial goals?
Right, we need to make it practical. So let's go back to the basics for a minute. Why should anyone even consider using Seeking Alpha? What makes it different from all the other investment resources out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, so what makes Seeking Alpha stand out?
Well, for one thing, the amount of detail and information you get is really impressive. You have all these professional analysts writing articles, but you also have individual investors sharing their experiences. So you get a really unique mix of perspectives.
It's like having a team of experts and a whole community of investors at your disposal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just one person's opinion, it's
Correct.
a whole range of ideas and insights. And it's not just opinions either. They also have a bunch of really useful tools to help you research stocks, keep track of your portfolio, and stay on top of the latest market news.
So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything investing related.
Yeah, you can do it all in one place. Research companies, analyze stocks, build a portfolio, track how you're doing, even connect with other investors. And another really important thing about Seeking Alpha is the sense of community. It's a very collaborative environment where people can bounce ideas off each other, debate different strategies, and learn from one another's experiences.
Like a virtual investment club, but way bigger.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the educational value either. Seeking Alpha is a fantastic resource for learning about investing, no matter your skill level.
Oh yeah, the articles, videos, and tutorials cover pretty much everything, from the basic stuff to some really advanced trading strategies.
So whether you're just starting out or you've been investing for years, there's something there for you. Okay, so we've established that Seeking Alpha has a lot going for it. But how do you know if it's right for you specifically?
That's the million-dollar question, right? There are so many different investors out there. How do you know if it's a good fit for your individual situation?
That's a great question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It really comes down to your individual needs, goals, and investing style.
So, what are some things people should think about when deciding if seeking alpha is right for them?
Well, the first thing is your experience level. If you're brand new to investing, seeking alpha can be a great place to start. The educational resources and community discussions can really help you get up to speed.
Yeah, it can be a bit intimidating when you're first starting out, so it's nice to have that support system.
Exactly. But if you're already a more experienced investor, you might find that the free features are enough for what you need.
Makes sense. What about your investment goals? Do those matter?
Definitely. If your main goal is long-term growth, seeking alpha's in-depth stock analyses and that quant rating system can be really helpful in finding promising companies.
So for growth investors, those features are really valuable?
Yeah, but if you're more interested in income or value investing, you might focus more on their dividend tools and their coverage of special situations.
Ugh. So different tools for different goals. It's all about finding what works for you. And what about personal preferences? I mean, some people are more hands-on with their investments, while others prefer to let someone else handle it. Right.
Absolutely. And seeking alpha can work for both types of investors. You can use the platform to research and pick your own investments, or you can follow the recommendations of expert contributors and invest in pre-built portfolios.
So, lots of flexibility there.
And at the end of the day, the best way to decide if seeking alpha is right for you is to just try it out. Take advantage of the free stuff, see what the different features are like, and just get a feel for how it all works.
Yeah, play around with it, kick the tires a bit, see if you like it.
Exactly. And if you find yourself wanting those more advanced tools or analyses, you can always consider upgrading to a paid subscription.
So there's really no risk in trying it out.
Not really. It's all about finding what works best for you and your investing journey. There's no one right way to do things.
So true. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We've gone from the nitty-gritty details of seeking alpha to some broader concepts about investing in general.
It's been a wild ride. Yeah, it's been fun. But now I think it's time to zoom out a little bit, see how seeking alpha fits into the bigger picture of, investing and financial literacy in general. Because just using one platform, well, that's only one piece of the puzzle. Right?
Oh, absolutely. The end goal is for you to develop your own investing strategy, become a more confident and informed investor, overall.
Totally. Okay, so let's recap everything. We talked about features, benefits, some of the potential downsides. What are the big takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
The first one, and this is really important, seeking alpha. It's a powerful tool, but it's not like a magic crystal ball. It doesn't predict the future.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Right. But unfortunately, no, those don't exist. So you still have to do your own research, think critically, be responsible for your own decisions. Seeking alpha gives you the information, but it's up to you to use it wisely.
Makes sense. Okay, what else?
Another important point. Seeking alpha isn't just for those Wall Street types. It's designed to be helpful for beginners too.
Oh, good point. So if you're just starting out, don't be scared off.
Yeah, exactly. They have those educational resources we talked about. The community is super helpful. It can be a great place to learn the basics.
Okay, so let's get practical now. What are some actionable tips for using seeking alpha effectively?
One of the most important things, and we touched on this earlier, is to always keep potential biases in mind. Remember, not all contributors have the same level of knowledge or objectivity.
Some might have their own agenda, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to read between the lines a bit, do your own research before making any decisions based on what you see on there.
Makes sense. What else?
Another good tip is to really engage with that community. Ask questions, share your own thoughts, see what other people are saying. You can learn a lot from that back and forth.
Yeah, it's like having a huge brainstorming session with thousands of other investors.
Exactly. And
Right.
don't be afraid to, challenge conventional wisdom sometimes. Some of the best opportunities come from thinking outside the box a little bit.
That's what makes investing so interesting, right? There's always something new to learn.
Totally. And last but not least, remember that investing is a long game. It's about building a diversified portfolio, staying patient, and focusing on those long-term goals.
Don't get caught up in the short-term stuff, right?
Exactly. The key is to stay disciplined and consistent.
I like that. Well, wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. I feel like we've gone from the basics of the platform all the way to the philosophy of investing.
We really have. It's been a great conversation.
Okay, but before we go, let's leave our listeners with a little something to think about, a question to ponder,
I like that. How about this? How are you going to use what you learned from this deep dive to become a better, more empowered investor?
Ooh, good one. It's not enough to just hear the information. You got to put it into practice.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it all starts with educating yourself, being willing to learn, and seeking alpha. Well, it can be a great resource on that journey. It gives you the tools you need to navigate the world of investing.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep working towards those financial goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Seeking Alpha. We hope you enjoyed it, and most importantly, that you learned something valuable. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your money. So keep learning, stay curious, and as always, happy investing.